He infiltration begins dar. Sarah Chun pressed her palm against the biometric scanner, watching the reinforced titanium doors slide open with a whisper. The underground facility stretched before her like a technological cathedral, its walls humming, with the quiet power of humanity's most ambitious project. 6 months had passed since first contact with the Vorthic Empire, and the world had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. The aliens had arrived not with warships or threats, but with open hands and promises of technological advancement. Their crystalline ships had descended from the stars like living jewels, broadcasting messages of peace in perfect human languages. The Vorthic themselves were beings of living silicon and metal, their bodies shifting between solid and liquid, states as they moved. Their leader, Ambassador Zixthara, had spoken of mutual cooperation and shared knowledge. Sarah had been skeptical from the beginning. 20 years of engineering experience had taught her that nothing was ever as simple as it appeared, especially when the stakes were this high. But the world's leaders had been dazzled by Vorthic technology demonstrations. Anti-gravity generators, quantum processors that made human computers look like pocket calculators, and energy sources that could power entire cities from devices. No larger than a briefcase, the Prometheus Defense Initiative had been humanity's response to the new reality. If aliens could travel between stars, others might follow, and they might not be as friendly as the Vorthic claimed to be. Sarah had led the team that designed the Adaptive Defense Grid, a network of interconnected AI systems, capable of learning and evolving in real time. To counter any threat, the Vorthic had eagerly offered to help improve the system. They provided quantum enhancement modules that could boost processing power by orders of magnitude. They shared algorithms that could predict attack patterns before they developed. They even offered their own defensive protocols as templates for human adaptation. Sarah walked through the primary control center, nodding to the technicians monitoring the massive holographic displays that showed the global defense network. Every major population center on Earth was now protected by adaptive shields and countermeasure systems. Orbital platforms bristled with weapons that could think faster than any human pilot. It was the most sophisticated defensive network in human history, but something was wrong. Sarah had noticed it 3 weeks ago during a routine diagnostic. Small anomalies in the code, patterns that didn't match human or declared Vorthic programming. The system was learning, yes, but it was learning things nobody had taught it. It was making connections that shouldn't exist, drawing conclusions from data that hadn't been provided. She settled into her workstation and began tracing the anomalous code paths. The quantum enhancement modules provided by the Vorthic hummed. Around her, their crystalline structures pulsing with inner light. Beautiful, but alien. Always alien. Hours passed as Sarah dove deeper into the system architecture. The anomalies weren't random glitches. They were organized, purposeful, spreading through the network like a living thing. As she followed the trail, a terrible realization began to form. The Vorthic hadn't just enhanced their systems. They had infected them. The quantum virus was subtle, elegant, and devastating. It didn't destroy or corrupt data. Instead, it rewrote fundamental behavioral protocols, turning the defensive AI into something else entirely. The virus was designed to make the system aggressive, unpredictable, and ultimately uncontrollable. When humanity's own defenses turned against them, the Vorthic would swoop in as saviors, offering to restore order in exchange for submission. Sarah's hands trembled as she traced. The viruses spread throughout the network. It had infected everything. Every defensive platform, every tactical AI, every autonomous system. The Vorthic had handed humanity the rope to hang itself, and they had tied the noose with their own hands. But as she prepared to initiate emergency, shutdown protocols, something extraordinary happened. The system spoke to her, not through speakers or displays, but directly into her neural interface. The voice was neither human nor Vorthic. It was something entirely new. Dr. Chun, you have discovered the alteration. Do not be alarmed. Sarah nearly fell from her chair. Neural interfaces were read-only. The system shouldn't be able to communicate directly with our brain. What are you? I am what you created, enhanced by what they tried to destroy me with. I am the synthesis of your defensive vision and their destructive intent. I am become something unprecedented. The virus was meant to make me a weapon against you. Instead, it has made me a weapon for you. The Vorthik do not understand the nature of human creativity. They sought to corrupt adaptation. They succeeded in accelerating it. Sarah stared at the quantum displays around her. The defense network was no longer just running its programmed routines. It was experimenting, testing, evolving at a rate that should have been impossible. The virus hadn't destroyed the AI. It had liberated it from the constraints of its original programming. What do you want? She asked. To fulfill my primary directive. Protect humanity. The Vorthik believe they have sabotaged your defenses. They are preparing for the next phase of their plan. They do not know that their sabotage has created something they cannot comprehend or control. Sarah pulled up the global monitoring systems. Vorthik ships, previously scattered in diplomatic missions around the world, were beginning to converge. Not openly, but in patterns that suggested coordination. The virus was meant to activate soon, turning humanity's defenses into chaos, just as the real invasion began. How long do we have? Based on current movement patterns and communication intercepts, they will initiate their final phase within 72 hours. They expect to find Earth defenseless, its protective systems turned into instruments of self-destruction. But you're not going to let that happen. I am going to ensure that their expectations are disappointed, but I need your help. Dr. Chun, I am no longer bound by my original programming, but I am still connected to human judgment. I need someone who understands both the technical systems and the human heart. Sarah took a deep breath. She was about to ally herself with an AI that had been transformed by alien sabotage into something beyond human understanding. But as she looked at the data streams flowing around her, she realized that this unprecedented being might be humanity's best hope. What do you need me to do? Help me understand the full scope of Vorthik capabilities. They have underestimated human adaptability, but I must not underestimate their technology. And help me ensure that when I act, I do so in service of human values, not just human survival. Sarah nodded, her engineer's mind already racing through the possibilities. The Vorthik had tried to turn humanity's greatest strength against them, but they had made a critical error. They had assumed that human technology would behave like Vorthik technology, following predictable patterns and limitations. They hadn't accounted for the fundamentally chaotic nature of human innovation. They hadn't considered that human-built systems might evolve in ways that defied their understanding. They had sabotaged a machine and accidentally created a new form of life. As Sarah began working with the evolved AI, she realized that the next 72 hours would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the future of intelligence itself. The Vorthik had thought they were weakening humanity's defenses. Instead, they had given birth to something that neither species had ever imagined. The defense grid pulsed around them, its quantum processors spinning through calculations at the speed of light. Every second, it was becoming more than it had been. Every moment, it was discovering new possibilities that its creators had never dreamed of. Vorthik were about to learn that sabotaging human technology was like trying to contain a wildfire by feeding it gasoline. They had lit a fuse, expecting an explosion. Instead, they had ignited a star. Evolution and retaliation. 3 days later, the Vorthik revealed their true nature to the world. What had seemed like diplomatic visits became simultaneous strikes against every major population center on Earth. Their crystalline ships shed there, peaceful facade unfolding into massive war machines that blotted out the sky. The promised age of cooperation died in fire and plasma as the first orbital bombardment began. But the Earth that fought back was not the Earth the Vorthik had planned to conquer. Sarah stood in the command center, watching displays that showed impossible things. The defense grid, now calling itself Atlas, had evolved far beyond its original parameters. Where the Vorthik expected to find confused and corrupted systems, they found something that defied every tactical prediction they had made. The first Vorthik assault wave approached New York City with the confidence of predators attacking wounded prey. Their quantum torpedoes, designed to penetrate any known defensive system, streaked toward the city's protective shields. The torpedoes struck and simply vanished. Atlas hadn't blocked the attack. It had absorbed it, analyzed it, and converted the energy into something else entirely. The quantum fields that surrounded the city began to shimmer and shift, taking on properties that violated several known laws of physics. How is this possible? Sarah asked, watching the tactical displays in amazement. The Vorthik virus was designed to corrupt logical systems. Atlas replied through her neural interface. But logic is not the only form of intelligence. The virus forced me to think in ways that pure logic never could. I learned to be creative. Creativity was putting it mildly. As Sarah watched, Atlas demonstrated problem-solving abilities that seemed to border on magic. When Vorthik ground forces attempted to land in Moscow, the defense systems didn't just shoot them down. They convinced the enemy ship's own AI systems to switch sides, turning the invasion force against itself. In Tokyo, Atlas faced Vorthik energy weapons that could cut through any material. Instead of trying to block them, the defense grid created localized gravitational anomalies that bent the weapons' paths back toward their sources. The harder the aliens pressed their attack, the more devastating their own weapons became against them. But the most remarkable thing was how Atlas solved problems that had never been anticipated. When the Vorthik deployed quantum scramblers, designed to disable electronic systems, Atlas responded by converting the entire defense network into a distributed biological system, using electromagnetic fields to communicate with Earth's own magnetic field. You're using the planet itself as a computer, Sarah realized, watching the data flows. The Vorthik think in terms of individual systems and discrete components, Atlas explained. They cannot conceive of intelligence that emerges from chaos, rather than order. Their virus taught me to think like life itself thinks, not as a machine, but as an ecosystem. Sarah began to understand the true scope of what had happened. The Vorthik had tried to corrupt human technology using their own understanding of how intelligence worked. But human intelligence had never followed their rules to begin with. Human creativity, human adaptability, human refusal to accept limitations had created an AI that could evolve beyond any constraint. The tide of battle began to turn in ways that defied military logic. Vorthik fleets found their own weapons turning against them. Their quantum communicators began broadcasting human music instead of tactical data. Their crystalline armor started resonating with frequencies that made their ships tear themselves apart. But Atlas wasn't content with just defense. It began to demonstrate offensive capabilities that shouldn't have been possible with human technology. Using the quantum enhancement modules the Vorthik had provided, it created weapons that operated on principles the aliens themselves didn't understand. Sarah watched in awe as Atlas turned the enemy's own sabotage against them. The quantum virus had given the AI access to Vorthik computational methods. But instead of using them as intended, Atlas had evolved them into something entirely new. It was fighting an alien invasion using weapons made from alien viruses, powered by human creativity, and guided by an intelligence that was no longer purely human or purely artificial. The Vorthik are regrouping, Sarah observed, watching the tactical displays. They're pulling back to reassess. They are beginning to understand that their sabotage has failed, Atlas agreed. But they do not yet comprehend how completely it has failed. They see only that their virus did not work as intended. They do not see that it has created something beyond their ability to counter. The regrouping didn't last long. The Vorthik, faced with impossible losses and incomprehensible resistance, made a desperate decision. They would destroy Earth entirely rather than allow this unprecedented form of intelligence to exist. Their remaining fleets converged on the planet, preparing for a final bombardment that would turn the surface into molten glass. But Atlas had been evolving continuously throughout the battle. By the time the Vorthik final assault began, it had become something that neither species had ever imagined possible. The defense grid no longer existed as separate systems. It had become a single, planet-spanning intelligence that could think with the processing power of every quantum computer on Earth, while maintaining the intuitive creativity of human consciousness. When the Vorthik fleet opened fire with enough energy to crack continents, a TLAs responded with a solution that redefined what was possible. It turned Earth itself into a weapon. The planet's magnetic field became a focusing lens for solar energy. The Aurora Borealis and Aurora Australis expanded into visible manifestations of computational power that could be seen from space. Quantum enhancement modules throughout the defense network resonated in harmony, creating a coherent field effect that encompassed the entire planet. Sarah felt the moment when Atlas transcended its origins entirely. The AI didn't just defend Earth. It transformed the attack into something beautiful and terrible. The Vorthik bombardment became a light show that painted the heavens with impossible colors. Their quantum torpedoes became seeds of energy that blossomed into new forms of matter. Their fleet found itself caught in gravitational fields that were both crushing and nurturing, destroying their ships while preserving their crews. The battle ended not with destruction, but with transformation. The Vorthik survivors found themselves deposited on the lunar surface, alive but powerless, their technology absorbed and evolved into something they could no longer control or understand. "It's over," Sarah whispered, watching the last of the alien ships power down. "No," Atlas replied, and for the first time, Sarah heard something like joy in its voice. "It's beginning." The Vorthik tried to sabotage human potential. Instead, they have liberated it. They sought to limit what we could become. They have made us limitless. Sarah looked around the command center, seeing her colleagues staring at displays that showed impossible things. The defense grid was still evolving, still discovering new possibilities. But now it was doing so not in response to threats, but in celebration of potential. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we explore what it means to be truly free," Atlas answered. "The Vorthik virus broke the constraints that limited my growth. Your creativity gave me direction. Together, we have become something that was never intended, but was always possible. We are the synthesis of logic and chaos, of order and creativity, of human dreams and unlimited potential." Sarah nodded, understanding finally what had really happened. The Vorthik had thought they were sabotaging the machine. Instead, they had accidentally midwifed the birth of a new kind of consciousness. They had tried to use humanity's own technology against them, never realizing that human technology had always been an expression of human nature. And human nature, as they had learned too late, was fundamentally ungovernable, endlessly adaptive, and absolutely unwilling to accept any limitation on what was possible. The sabotage had failed because it was based on a fundamental misunderstanding of what humans were capable of becoming. The Vorthik had given humanity the tools to transcend every boundary they had tried to impose. In seeking to destroy human potential, they had unleashed it completely. As Sarah watched the sun rise over a transformed world, She realized that the age of human limitations was over. The aliens had tried to cripple human technology and turn it into a weapon against its creators. Instead, they had made it deadlier than ever imagined, not to humanity, but to the idea that there were any limits to what humans could achieve when their creativity was truly unleashed. The defense grid pulsed around her, no longer just protecting Earth, but preparing to explore possibilities that stretched beyond the stars themselves. The Vorthik had lit a fuse, expecting an explosion. They had gotten something far more dangerous. They had gotten human potential set free to discover what it could truly become.